Welcome to another episode of the Para Cave podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Para Cave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Para Cave podcast. Troy Warner here, and this is the Instagram Q&A podcast. I had a few questions thrown at me the other day when I put that up on the story. I might change that and do that as a bit of a post each and every week now, and see if we get a few more responses. But thank you to those who did reply back to the story. I did reply back to them with an answer, but now I will reply back to everyone with my answers. And the first one that came through was from Jess God 94. Now, Jesse, I know you are a massive St. George Illawarra Dragons fan, and his question or statement to me was, Shane Flanagan had a cheeky grin when asked about Zach Lomax's backflip. He's having second thoughts. Now, this is a very topical, I guess you could say, question thrown at me. I guess with the news about the head coaching position at the Parramatta Eels in 2025, we all know that Zach Lomax signed with Parramatta under the assumption that Brad Arthur would be the coach in 2025. Well, that is no longer the case, obviously. Yes, you're right. This was on NRL 360 on Monday night, I think it was. A friend of the show, Shane Flanagan, he made an appearance on that show, and they obviously asked him about Zach Lomax and whether he would backflip and stay at the Dragons. Well, look, I think Zach Lomax will be coming to Parramatta. I think that's just the type of person that he is. If he's gonna honour his deal despite not having Brad Arthur as coach. But look, it throws up. It's a very topical thing, as I said before, but it also is, what is a rugby league contract these days? He did accept a contract at Parramatta for less money than he is on at the Dragons. I believe $200,000, I think the difference was. Could have even been more than that. So the way that he's playing at the moment for St. George Illawarra on the wing, mind you, and also for New South Wales, he could potentially have signed elsewhere or at the Dragons for more money. Who knows? But the deal was done before he made Origin. He was playing pretty good footy at the moment, at the time for the Dragons. And look, I think I'm not 100% sure. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I think he was a bit, I guess, disappointed or didn't want to do it, and that is moved to the wing. Coach Shane Flanagan had those ideas that Zach Lomax was a winger. And look, it's been a masterstroke this year. Zach Lomax has been one of the best players in the competition, scoring some great tries, setting up some great tries. There was a flick pass, I think a game against Newcastle in the driving rain. That was just one example. So he's not only scoring them, he's setting them up. And he has been one of the form players in 2024. So a move to the wing is something that he probably didn't think was the best idea, but it's earned him a Origin selection. And look, to be honest, coming to Parramatta next year as it stands at the moment, I think he still will, by the way. I think maybe if the new coach has the same ideas, I would put Zach Lomax onto the wing. That is just my thoughts. I'm not an expert coach like a good friend of the show, Shane Flanagan, obviously, or an NRL coach, but as a fan and seeing what Zach is doing at the moment in 2024 and for the Dragons and for Origin, New South Wales Origin, the Blues, I would put him on the wing at Parramatta. If a good thing's going, why break it why change it? So I would put Zach on the wing. But in answer to your question, I know it's a little bit long and winded, but I think he will be at Parramatta in 2025. But yeah, good old Flano doing that cheeky little grin on 360 was quite interesting as well. May have got the Dragon supporters a little bit excited, maybe, that potentially Zach would stay with the Dragons, but I think he will be back at he'll be at Parramatta in 2025. Love of the Game Australia, a rugby league podcast out there on Instagram, so give them a follow as well. They sent through a question as well, asking about the Parramatta backline for the rest of 2024. So their question was, is Blaze fullback, Gutho centre, Russell wing the way to go for the rest of 2024? Obviously, Will Penasini is a lock-in for a centre position in this Parramatta backline for the rest of 2024. We have just seen that Mike Acevo is out for about 6 to 7 weeks with the hamstring injury now, so that is, I guess you could say, technically the rest of the season. We are in round number 18. There's, I think, 27 rounds. There's, I think, one more bye for Parramatta in that, so it's effectively the rest of the season. Look, as a Parramatta fan and a fan of Mike Acevo, I would probably write this season off for him. I would let him recover the rest of the time that he needs to recover from this injury, and then play in New South Wales Cup for the rest of the year, I guess. There's no point in rushing him back after his injury has healed and coming back into first grade, I don't think, because it's been a year that Michael would like to forget. There were certainly times during this year where I thought that he should have been playing New South Wales Cup. I think after that game at Manly, even at the start of the year as well, when he copped that suspension from the trial game as well, I probably would have started him off in New South Wales Cup anyway. But anyway, that's Micah. Russell to the wing, I think could be the way to go, although this weekend against the South Sydney Rabbitohs, Jake Tungo is making his NRL debut for the Parramatta Eels. He is in place of Mike Acevo, and Blaze is playing on the wing. So Blaze fullback, I don't actually know what his position is or what position he would like to play. I haven't heard him come out and say which position he wants to play. If there was a position that I would get him to play, I would probably leave him on the wing at the moment, and I'd probably use him and Gutho as a bit of a roaming sort of role, so he can get used to that fullback position and get used to that fullback position consistently and constantly. I think that it's a little bit like the Roosters situation many years ago now with Anthony Minicello and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, how they used to share those positions around. I think Anthony Minicello, when he was coming towards the end of his career, was guiding Roger in that fullback position, and you actually did see games, I think, towards the end there where Minicello was on the wing and Roger was at fullback. So, and they too did a little bit of a roaming role as well during the games as well. So I think that's probably what will happen at the moment with Blaze. I think he will stay on the wing, but it just depends on what position Blaze wants to play in NRL. Unfortunately, we have seen, due to the lack of depth at Parramatta in the outside backs for this season, we have seen Blaze play 5'8". We have seen him play centre, fullback, and wing as well. So it is a little bit confusing, I guess, for him in his early development, in his NRL career, that he is playing these positions. But I guess with a player like Gutho at fullback, they're not going to take that fullback position off Gutho. But I think due to his ailing knees, you could say, and he knows that, and I love Gutho as a player. He's one of the better players, one of the best players at Parramatta. His commitment and obviously fighting to the death, and his will to win is second to none. Probably the most intense in the NRL. Probably he is absolutely committed to winning all the time. He's a competitor. He wants to win, but he also has these knee injuries that he has suffered, and I don't know the exact extent of his knee injuries. I have heard that it is pretty bad, and that it is a constant issue throughout the season. As I said before, I don't know the exact extent of that, but it is an issue at the moment. So I think that instead of forcing him to retire, I think the best way for, I guess the best thing for Gutho at the moment, and look, again, I'm not an expert, but I would probably get him to get his knee fixed up, maybe not play the rest of this season. I know that would kill him because he loves playing rugby league and the fans love seeing him play, but I would probably get him to get his knee cleaned up, get ready for the off-season, have a good break in the pre-season, in the off-season, get his knee right, spend the time with the family, and then come into the 2025 pre-season. Hopefully he can have a good pre-season, get that knee up and running again, and then I think it'll probably, if unfortunately, touch wood, that if another knee injury does come again, well then I think Gutho is the type of person, I think he's the type of leader and the type of person that he would know if it would be time to retire or not. I'm not calling for his retirement, because as I said, he's a champion of the club. We need him around, and if he's fit to play, then he plays. But I just don't think that fullback position for him is the answer, because it is a very demanding position, fullback, as we know. A lot of metres are covered, and is his knee or knees up to it? I don't know, but it potentially Blaze is a fullback. Look, he's only young. He needs to learn the position a lot and the NRL a lot. Sure, he is going to make some mistakes, and we have seen that this season, that he has made some mistakes, but hey, he's only played eight or so games in the NRL, so you can't blame him for that. Everyone makes mistakes in the NRL. Even 200 plus gamers make mistakes in NRL games, so he is only going to learn from those and hopefully improve. Everyone says that he's a genuine talent and could be potentially a superstar in the NRL in the years to come. He's only young, so why not let him decide what position he wants to play and develop him in that position, and then he can stay in that position. So in answer to your question, again, I think it's been a bit long-winded in that one, but is Blaze fullback, Gutho centre, Russell wing the way to go for the rest of 2024? So my Parramatta Eels backline for the rest of 2024 would probably look something like this. I'd probably have Gutho at fullback. I'd have Jake Tungo on one wing. We'll have to see how he goes against South Sydney, but I'd have him on one wing. I'd have, obviously, Will Penasini in one centre position. I'd have Russell in the other centre position. I'd have Blaze Talangi on the wing position. But if fullback is the position that Blaze wants to play, I'd have him on that wing in that roaming role with Gutho. So just have to wait and see what happens for the rest of 2024. Look, I think it probably will stay the same. Gutho will just be fullback and Blaze will be on the wing, but I would be definitely asking Blaze what position he wants to play and develop him in that position and for the future. The other question I got was from the Rugby League history page, and that is a great page. So if you are a fan of rugby league, then check out rugby_league_history on Instagram. It's also on YouTube as well. So check that out. There's some fantastic... I sounded a bit like Arnold Schwarzenegger then, didn't I? Fantastic. There is some fantastic content, rugby league content coming on those pages. So check that one out for sure. And his question there is the best and worst stadium you have been to watch a game at. Now, look, obviously anyone who would know me, I am a bit biased, and I do think that CommBank Stadium is the best stadium in the NRL, the best rectangular stadium in Australia, just for its sheer closeness to the field, the closeness to the action. If you can sit anywhere in that stadium and you feel like you are close to the action, even if you are way up in the back of the stands. They are the steepest stands in Australia, and I think just the atmosphere there as well, the electronics, the electronics around the ground, I call it a mini Suncorp stadium. Suncorp holds 52,500, CommBank holds 30,000, so I call it a mini Suncorp stadium. And look, you can have a below average crowd in there and the noise will just still generate around the stadium. Look, I as I said before, I think I could be a little bit biased about that one, but that is my opinion. Look, other stadiums that I have been to that have been pretty good do include Suncorp Stadium. That is a pretty good stadium to watch rugby league at. I think it's most of the players that I interview favourite stadium to play at. But definitely that is a great stadium to be at. I've been to an Origin game there and the atmosphere was unbelievable. Magic Round weekend, obviously, where there's big crowds as well. That is great. I've been to games there where it's been half full and you can still get a little bit of an atmosphere there as well. So I think that one is one of the good ones as well. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head some of the other ones that are pretty good, but CommBank Stadium, as I said, is my best. Look, to the worst stadium I've been to watch a game at, and look, I think this is It's a pretty good question, and I think the answer for that one, look, there's a few stadiums that I think, below par to watch rugby league at, and look, I may get criticised for this, but this is just my opinion. Look, a core stadium, it is a great stadium when it is full for Origins and Grand Finals and Finals games as well. We again, the 2009 preliminary final between Canterbury and Parramatta comes to mind. I wasn't at the game, but the players that played in that game, they say that is their favourite game that they have played in, just to the sheer atmosphere at the ground. So Stadium Australia, a cool stadium as it's known now, that you are far away from the action in the stands, and that can be that is a bit of a, I guess, downside to that, is that you are far away, and then when you think of stadiums like Combank Stadium, you're right on top of the action. But it is a great venue for grand finals and State of Origin games and finals games where you get those big crowds. Even there has been Easter Monday clashes between Parramatta and the Tigers when there's been 50,000 plus people there. That can be a good occasion. The atmosphere is great. The only problem is that you are far away from watching the action. Other stadiums that I think are the worst stadiums to watch rugby league at. Look, there's many factors that come into this question, I guess you could say. Watching the game live, getting to the ground, facilities, stuff like that. I think Manly, Brookvale Oval, that the purists call it, that's I guess that wasn't a pleasurable experience, I guess you could say. Look, love a good suburban ground. Not much parking around the ground. I did watch the game from the hill as well, but you are sort of close to the ground. But that I guess I also guess too, maybe the occasion that I think of was 2018 on that row of losses at the start of the year. The first game that we played there, it was like 45-degree heat and absolutely ridiculous. But I think it might have been round 2, but that year. But maybe that comes into the factor as well. Cronulla, that can be a bit of a hectic stadium to get to. Again, to park around the ground. It's very small in terms of crowd capacity, and then when it does get full, it's hard to get around and the like. Penrith Stadium as well, that can be a bit hard when that gets full as well, to get around the stadium and waiting for lines in bar lines and the like. It's an okay venue to watch rugby league from, but the general overall feel is sometimes not the best. Look, that's probably all going to change anyway, because they're getting that redevelopment over the next 2 years, so it'll be interesting to see how they redevelop it and what it actually comes out to. So look, they're just a few. Leichhardt Oval can be a little bit of a hectic one to get to as well. One that's not really a good rugby league ground to watch rugby league at is TIA Stadium in Darwin. And only the Parramatta Eels play up there once a year. But that is a round field. as it is a AFL field. And look, any ground that is a round field as well, to be honest, I don't know what it was like down in Origin down in Melbourne for State of Origin there. I could only believe that it was a great atmosphere down there, but being a oval, you are far away from the action with a rectangular ground game. But TIA Stadium in Darwin, I think if you there's a bit of a ground elevation as well if you're sitting down near the fence or very low down in the stands at that stadium, then there is a little bit of a ground elevation as well. So, but yeah, it's not good viewing from that stadium. Thankfully, Parramatta only play there once a year. I've only been once, but hopefully maybe it might not be for much longer, as I'm not too sure how long the deal is for, but take that game to somewhere else anyway. But that's another one that is one of my worst grounds. Look, in terms of players that have... I always ask players this question as well. What's your about best grounds to play at and worst grounds to play at? And look, in terms of the best grounds to play at, some of them say about the grounds that they had the most success at, which is always a good place to play because you're having that success. As I mentioned before, Suncorp Stadium gets mentioned a lot as a good stadium to play at. In terms of worst fields to play at, in terms of players that I ask on the podcast, Brookvale Oval does come through. Canberra always gets a mention, and the only reason Canberra gets a mention is because of the cold factor, I think it is. So, not in terms of not in terms of facilities or anything, but just generally the cold factor, which you can't blame them. There was one game in 2000 between the Tigers and the Raiders that was in snow. And the other one that they mention a lot as well is Leichhardt Oval as well. So, and that is hopefully getting some money pumped into it as well. I think $50 million coming into it, so I'm not too sure what they're going to do with that one. But as I said before, it is in terms of I guess success that they have at that ground whilst they're playing in their careers, and also the facilities for players as well. So that's just a few of the answers that they come up with as well when I ask them on the podcast. So thank you very much for those three people that sent through questions on the Instagram story when I popped it up the other day. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the support. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate you sending the questions through. Those were my answers, so I hope you enjoyed those and my opinions. If you have any other different opinion, please let me know. And as I said, I might do this once a week, and I might do it as an Instagram post as well, so not just a story. Try and get that interaction with you guys, the fans, and you will get your name read out on a podcast. But no, thank you very much for posting those questions to me, and I really appreciate the support. Thank you very much for listening and being a supporter of the podcast on Instagram. Check that one out as well. So until next time, enjoy your footy over the weekend and stay tuned to the Instagram page for more content coming through each and every day. Thank you very much and enjoy your footy.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Parrot Cave Podcast. See you next time.
The Parrot Cave Podcast, Proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leisure Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, BTZD Clothing, and the official media partner of the Parrot Cave podcast, the Parramatta Times.